Welcome to the next session on Module 4, Environmental Pollution. So what do you mean by environmental pollution? Pollution may be defined as the excessive discharge of undesirable substances into the environment which alters the nature of the environment, thus causing damage to humans, plants, or animal life. Substances which cause pollution are called pollutants. And these pollutants, they will be present in considerable amounts in the environment so that they are harmful to living organisms or things in the environment. And pollutants present in air, they are called air pollutants. Air pollutants broadly they are classified into two types: primary air pollutants and secondary air pollutants. Now, primary air pollutants are those which are directly emitted into the atmosphere through natural or human activity. For example, oxides of carbon, nitrogen, and sulphur. That is, carbon monoxide, nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulphur dioxide, etc. Now, secondary air pollutants are those that are not directly released into the atmosphere, but they are formed when primary pollutants react in the atmosphere. Example, ozone, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, etc. Nitric acid, sulfuric acid, etc. they are formed from primary air pollutants, because primary air pollutants, when they mix up with the water vapor in the atmosphere, they get converted to the corresponding acids. And when it rains, these acids they come down along with the rain as acid rain. So these secondary air pollutants they are formed when the primary pollutants react in the atmosphere. Now first let us see carbon monoxide. The major sources of carbon monoxide are by the partial combustion of fuel in automobiles, industries and oil refineries. When partial combustion takes place, carbon combines with oxygen forming carbon monoxide. Then by burning of charcoal and by dissociation of carbon dioxide at higher temperatures. When carbon dioxide, when it dissociates at high temperatures, it results in the formation of carbon monoxide and oxygen. So these are the major sources of carbon monoxide. Now coming to ill effects, first is it reacts with the red pigment, that is the hemoglobin present in our blood, to form carboxyhemoglobin, which blocks transfer of oxygen to the tissues, causing headache, weak eyesight, paralysis and even death in human beings. Because this carboxyhemoglobin, it is found to be 300 times more stable than oxyhemoglobin. And hence it will block transfer of oxygen to the tissues, which leads to headache, paralysis and even death in human beings. It can also cause cardiovascular disorders. This equation shows how carboxyhemoglobin is formed from oxyhemoglobin. From oxyhemoglobin, this oxygen it is replaced by carbon monoxide, resulting in the formation of carboxyhemoglobin. Now, higher carbon monoxide concentration, it can cause curling of leaves, reduction in leaf size and premature aging. So these are the ill effects of carbon monoxide. Now, control of carbon monoxide, that is how we can control the amount of carbon monoxide in the atmosphere. First is by modifying internal combustion engines, so that less amount of carbon monoxide is released into the atmosphere. Because when we modify internal combustion engine, complete combustion of fuel takes place. When complete combustion of fuel takes place, there will not be formation of carbon monoxide, but carbon dioxide will be formed. Then next, development of pollution-free power sources such as fuel cells to replace internal combustion engine. Then development of substitute fuels for gasoline which will yield low concentration of pollutants upon combustion, and by using catalytic converters. For example, when you pass carbon monoxide through catalytic converters containing platinum rhodium catalyst, they get converted to carbon dioxide. And how can you control the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere? It can be controlled by planting more trees. So these are the methods to control the amount of carbon monoxide in the atmosphere. Now we'll pass on to oxides of nitrogen. The main oxides of nitrogen are nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide, and nitrous oxide. Now let us see the sources of oxides of nitrogen. See, nitrogen and oxygen, they are the main constituents of air. But even though they are the main constituents of air, they do not react with each other at normal temperatures. But when lightning strikes at higher altitudes, they combine to form oxides of nitrogen, that is nitric oxide and nitrogen dioxide. So when lightning strikes, nitrogen combines with oxygen giving nitric oxide, as well as this nitric oxide will again combine with oxygen forming nitrogen dioxide. So nitric oxide and nitrogen dioxide, they are formed at higher altitudes when lightning strikes. Then when fossil fuel is burnt, oxides of nitrogen, they are released into the atmosphere. Then oxides of nitrogen, they are also formed due to bacterial decay of nitrogenous compounds. So these are the major sources of oxides of nitrogen. Now let us see the ill effects of oxides of nitrogen. Elevated levels, that means higher levels of nitrogen dioxide, it can cause damage to human respiratory tract. Then it is unpleasant in odor. It leads to irritation of eyes and even lung congestion. Oxides of nitrogen, they react with hydrocarbons forming smog. It limits the visibility of roads. It causes eye irritation and also causes difficulty in breathing, thereby leading to asthma and bronchitis. So, oxides of nitrogen in general, they are found to cause respiratory disorders leading to asthma, bronchitis, etc. Then they also cause acid rain which can damage forest, buildings, etc. So these are the major ill effects of oxides of nitrogen. Now to control oxides of nitrogen, we have to pass these gases through a catalytic converter containing platinum rhodium catalyst, which will convert these toxic gases into nitrogen and oxygen. So this is a way to control oxides of nitrogen. Now next is oxides of sulphur. Oxides of sulphur, they are produced when sulphur containing fossil fuel is burnt. They are also produced in petroleum industries, oil refineries, sulfuric acid plants, and in thermal power plants when sulphur containing coal and fuels are fired. When sulphur containing coal or fuels, when they are fired, what happens? The sulphur present in the fuel, it will combine with oxygen and form sulphur dioxide, which will again combine with more oxygen to form sulphur trioxide. Thus, sulphur dioxide as well as sulphur trioxide gas, they will be released into atmosphere. So these are the sources of oxides of sulphur. Now, ill effects. Sulphur dioxide as well as sulphur trioxide present in the atmosphere, they can combine with water vapor forming sulfurous acid, that is H2SO3, and sulfuric acid, that is H2SO4. So sulphur dioxide reacts with water vapor forming sulfurous acid, whereas sulphur trioxide, it will react with water vapor forming sulfuric acid. The mist thus formed, it may be washed down by rain and it is called acid rain. And acid rain, it is harmful to aquatic life, to fish as well as plants in water. It can leach metals from soil. Then it can destroy the fertility of soil, and it causes corrosion of metals. So these are the harmful effects of acid rain. So these are the major ill effects of oxides of sulphur. Now, low concentration of sulfur dioxide, it can cause respiratory diseases. It can also damage plant cells and membranes, leading to the reduction in plant growth. Now, let us see how to control oxides of sulfur. First is fuels with low sulfur, it can be used. Then large amount of sulfur, it can be removed by crushing and washing the coal before combustion. Now, sulfur dioxide concentration in the atmosphere, it can be controlled by flue gas desulfurization method. Here, during combustion of coal, flue gases, they are passed through a slurry of lime or limestone. This will convert sulfur dioxide into calcium sulfite or calcium sulfate. This method, it is very efficient and it can remove about 90% of sulfur dioxide. So, in flue gas desulfurization, the flue gas or the gas that comes out of the industries during the combustion of coal, they are passed through a slurry of lime or limestone. Limestone is nothing but calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate, when it is heated to a higher temperature, it will decompose forming calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. And this calcium oxide, it will react with sulfur dioxide forming calcium sulfite. And this calcium oxide, it will combine with sulfur dioxide and more amount of oxygen forming calcium sulfate. So, the sulfur dioxide that is present in the effluent gas, it will be converted to calcium sulfite as well as calcium sulfate. So, the effluent gas, it will have only less amount of sulfur dioxide. So, by flue gas desulfurization, we are able to remove almost 90% of the sulfur dioxide that is present in it. So, these are the ways to control oxides of sulfur in the atmosphere. Now, next is hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons means compounds made up of carbon and hydrogen. The major sources are by incomplete combustion of fuel in automobiles and industries. Then methane, it is also called greenhouse gas. It is a naturally occurring hydrocarbon which is emitted into the atmosphere due to anaerobic decomposition of organic matter by bacteria. Anaerobic decomposition means decomposition in the absence of oxygen. So, bacteria, it will decompose the organic matter forming carbon dioxide and methane. Methane, it is a hydrocarbon which is released into the atmosphere. So, these are the major sources of hydrocarbons. Now, ill effects. High concentration of hydrocarbons have carcinogenic effect on lungs. Means it can cause lung cancer. Then cyclic hydrocarbons, it is found to affect the nervous system. And hydrocarbons, they can harm plants by causing aging, breakdown of tissues and shedding of leaves and flowers, because the metabolic rate of plants, it will be increased. So, their metabolism, it is affected. As a result, it can cause aging in plants, shedding of leaves and flowers, etc. Inhalation of benzene, toluene, etc. It can cause irritation to mucous membrane. Mucous membrane means it is a membrane that lines the internal organs. So, inhalation of these hydrocarbons, it can cause irritation to the mucous membrane. So, these are the ill effects of hydrocarbons. Now, control of hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons present in the atmosphere, it can be minimized when the hydrocarbons released from auto exhaust are allowed to mix with excess of air and passed through catalytic converter. where they get oxidized, forming carbon dioxide and water. For example, methane, if it is present in the auto exhaust, if it is allowed to mix with excess of air in presence of catalyst in the catalytic converter, they get oxidized to carbon dioxide and water, and this can minimize the amount of hydrocarbon that is released into the atmosphere.